So what does women empowerment, white supremacy, and the abortion ban have in common? Well, imagine you were a major retail company back in the 50s. Business was booming. Since most of our executives and decision makers were men, your ads had no chill. You could easily get away with ads like this without a care in the world. I mean, just look at these ads.
She might like knowing you're getting a car that in most cases lasts long enough to get people out of new car payments and into new furniture payments or swimming pool payments or fur coat payments.
You were raking in millions and no one tried to stop you. Due to increased consumer spending, more and more households were being exposed to these ads and women started getting fed up. So fed up that in 1969 there was the first organized protest at the New York City's Macy's store that set things in motion. Women had just had enough and they demanded change. But you don't want to give in and lose all your money. So what do? You invest billions into advertising agencies and tell them to find a solution ASAP. Then reports came in showing that women actually amount for a huge chunk of the spending decisions made in the household, and they are even larger consumers than men. That's great news for you, because now you can create ads that empower women and remain profitable. The people love it, and the ads make you look like a progressive company. Plus, you are raking in even more profits than before. Life couldn't be better. By the mid-80s, the message of female empowerment became the standard marketing ploy in hundreds of ad campaigns, something unimaginable decades before. But I know you're probably asking, what does this have to do with the abortion ban and white supremacy? Well, sit back and relax as we dive deep into this topic. My name is Brian, and we make mini documentaries on global, social, and economic issues that you don't get to hear about. So make sure you like and subscribe for more. So let's take it back to the 30s after the Great Depression. Everyone was dirt poor. Our knight in shining armor, Mr. FDR, came up with the Social Security Act, which gave birth to the Aid to Families of Dependent Children, also known as the AFDC program. He gave us a sense of hope. The AFDC program was designed to give families in low-income environments a chance by giving them welfare checks. This would ensure that a child would be raised with its basic needs met. Although the AFDC program had great intentions, they may have inadvertently destroyed low-income families through the introduction of the man in the house rule. What is the man in the house rule? Simply put, the rule stated that a child would, quote, be denied benefits if the child's mother was living with or having relations with any single or married able-bodied male, end quote. Yeah, I'm not making this up, guys. The government literally incentivized low-income women to raise children independently. And unfortunately, due to redlining and other racist practices, Black people were significantly more likely to be in need of this support. So what happened after? Well, the results were shocking, to say the least. There was such an unprecedented reduction in marriages and an increase in divorces in America. More so in Blacks because they went from being more married than even white folks to basically giving up on marriage.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you are married. Raise your hand if you would like to be married to your baby's father. One. The rest of you who don't plan to get married, why don't you plan to get married? I'd like to know that.
I wouldn't want no man holding me down because I think I can make it as a single parent.
But don't you think you might need help in raising that baby from a man?
Not really. I didn't have a father. My father wasn't in the home, so, it really, male figures are not substantially important in the family.
Given that these babies were growing up with no fathers in their households, the daughters would grow up understanding that there is no need whatsoever for a man. They can do it all by themselves. Combine this with the modern marketing narrative of female empowerment, and you have yourself a fatherless nation. A large group of disenfranchised women who are forced to inherit masculine traits to overcome the lack of a man. all the evidence in their lives has showed that they can do significantly better by themselves, and the government was literally endorsing it. The men, on the other hand, are being targeted by law enforcement and have a significantly low chance of getting a proper job than a man of the opposite race. Add on top of that the war on drugs and mass incarceration, and you have a system designed to destroy the black man. But I'm getting ahead of myself. More on this on another video, because this issue applies to more than just black people. I know you're like, yeah, Brian, I hear you. But what does all this have to do with the abortion ban? It's all about the fertility rate. Significantly, the white fertility rate. I know most of you think I'm taking this a bit too far, but give me a chance to explain why. Did you know that most European countries are expected to have their populations cut in half by 2100? Yeah, half. What about America? Well, as of 2020, the fertility rate in the United States was 1.64. This means that the average family was having 1.64 children per household. This number is alarming because studies show that we need a fertility rate of 2.1 to replace the current population. If we go deeper and dive into the fertility rate between blacks, Hispanics, and whites, blacks had a fertility rate of 1.71, Hispanics had a rate of 1.87, and whites had one of 1.55. And this does not take into account the population increase of mixed-race individuals. But studies show that it has been rapidly increasing over the years. The US Census Bureau let people check more than one race for the first time in the year 2000, and 6.8 million people did so. By 2010, that figure had increased to nearly 9 million, a spike of 32%. In fact, National Geographic said that the average American in 2050 will look like this. To put it plainly, white people are slowly disappearing. But hold up a second. If you have watched any of my videos, you may have seen the video on the Great Replacement Theory. If not, you can find it here. In that video, I talk about this theory where white people believe that their population within their nations is being dramatically replaced by colored people. The video went deep into the facts, debunking this theory, so I know some of you are like, wait, Brian, aren't you just contradicting the video now? The answer is no. Although the Great Replacement Theory does blame fertility rate of people of color, its supporters claim that it's an insignificant contributor. They mainly blame immigration for the replacement of their great Caucasian race. Anyways, do you remember eugenics? That little thing that Hitler's idol introduced? For those of you who don't, let me refresh your memory. Eugenics is the theory of, quote, racial improvement and planned breeding, end quote, which gained popularity during the 20th century. Eugenicists worldwide, like Hitler, believed that they could perfect human beings and eliminate so-called social ills through genetics and heredity. They saw this as their moral duty. This is the same ideology that Margaret Sanger, the founder of the American Birth Control Group, which is the precursor to Planned Parenthood, believed in.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born.
In fact, her activism on birth control centered on, quote, weeding out the unfit and preventing birth of defectives, end quote. As time went on, Planned Parenthood became a household name. The number of abortions done in America rapidly increased, and most people did not pay it any mind, because family planning is generally a good thing. However, this trap that they set up for the so-called undesired humans ended up backfiring on them tremendously. How, you may ask? Because once again, if you combine the female empowerment marketing narrative with the destruction of marriage and the increase and general acceptance of abortions, you have yourself a pretty nasty gumbo, one that is starting to bubble up on us. This is why the powers that be, with their oh-so-great minds, believe that the only way white America can have any chance whatsoever to stay alive is to fully ban abortion as a whole. Don't be surprised when other Western countries start doing the same thing. There is another solution though, but more on that later. Now, why would they go this far? I mean, what could they possibly be afraid of? Well, here comes the biggest shocker. The population of sub-Saharan Africa is expected to triple in size to more than 3 billion people by 2100. Triple. Yeah, let that sink in. Europe's population is expected to be cut in half, whereas Africa's population is expected to triple within the same time frame. And many are finding this very alarming. The other solution I mentioned before that Western countries can use to maintain or increase their population is to have lenient immigration laws. But we all know that's a hell no. I'm sure most of you are aware of the so-called immigration crisis going on in Europe, where governments are investing billions to keep African and Asian immigrants away. I mean, countries are being forced to build massive walls and fences like we are in medieval times. They are afraid that their great nations and exemplary cultures will soon be taken over by unwanteds. Does this sound familiar? So what does the future hold? Well, it seems that this is the genesis of many similar policies that will eventually be introduced. The powers that be want to maintain the status quo that has rewarded them with so many privileges over the time. They want to consolidate power and will stop at nothing to try and combat their dwindling population. So they may start off by introducing themselves as friends to third world countries, while they are actually doing the opposite. So-called charity organizations and NGOs will start doing questionable things in large populated countries in the name of development and civilization. I'm going to pause the video here and warn you for a second. Because if you thought this video was evil, well, it's about to get a whole lot worse. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when the West decides to meddle in the affairs of third world countries, disaster usually strikes. So during the Cold War, America was so worried that infant third world countries would be easily manipulated by the Soviets and become communists. Thanks to our good friend Mr. Wattenberg and other economists, they believed that increased populations would lead to increased poverty, which would eventually lead to the spread of communism. So organizations like the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation led the charge in developing programs that encouraged family planning in third world countries. And you would not believe how they went about it. These organizations conducted one of the most disastrous population control programs in India. They paid low-income individuals to be sterilized in horrible and unsanitary conditions. I am not making this up. In the mid-60s, 29 million women were given IUDs in unsafe conditions, which led to unimaginable complications and multiple unrecorded deaths. Oh, but they didn't stop there. They learned from their mistakes and decided to bring in the big boys. So in 1975, the IMF and the World Bank was like, "Hey, India, you guys need some money? We will give you guys a large loan if you forcefully sterilize your men." And India was like, "Say no more." Indira Gandhi, who was the prime minister at that time, declared a state of emergency and got to work with her sons. Oh, she wasn't playing about that bag. He began what many described as, quote, "a gruesome campaign to sterilize poor men," end quote. The police were literally dragging people by force to surgery. This resulted in more than 6 million men being sterilized, which was 15 times the number of people sterilized by the Nazis. And this was in one country. You would think they would stop there, but no. India carried out nearly 4 million sterilizations as recent as 2019. More than 700 deaths were reported due to botched surgeries between 2009 and 2012, and even many more complications happened post-surgery. The results? Well, for the first time in recorded history, India's fertility rate is sitting below 2.1 and is decreasing at a staggering rate. Just in one country, tens of millions of people have been wrongfully sterilized, resulting in the non-existence of a whole generation. I mean, this is the modern-day Holocaust, just a lot more discreet. In fact, one of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's goal is to assist in, quote, reproductive rights and family planning in Africa, end quote.
Giving a woman the simple opportunity to decide for herself when to become a mother is an easy and effective way of letting her determine her own future. And it's much more than that. Information about and access to contraceptives would save the lives of 100,000 mothers and prevent 600,000 children from dying every year. Deciding when to become a mother allows girls to stay in school and women to work. Family planning programs boost education and the economy, giving developing countries the resources to help themselves. It's a health initiative that makes financial sense. Every $1 that we invest in family planning could save $6 that we'd spend on housing, healthcare, and public services. There are more than 200 million women who don't want to get pregnant but lack access to contraceptives. As a result, 75 million women will have an unplanned pregnancy. They want change for themselves and for their children, but they can't do it all by themselves. Every woman should be empowered and have the right to determine when she wants to have a child. The right to own her future and provide for her children's futures. The right to participate freely and equally in society.
The ironic part is that they only assist those who choose to limit their family size and abort children, and not those who want to increase their family size. Now, of course, you can give them the benefit of the doubt and say that what they are doing is good for the world. But when your ideas of family planning are rooted in the ideas behind 20th century fascism, then something ain't right. I believe giving the white leaders the mantle of shaping the future of Africa and other third world countries is simply not right. Time and time again, history has shown us that when a white man goes to a third world country preaching reform and development, disaster usually follows. Especially when they are using the flag of religion and philanthropy. I want to emphasize that history always repeats itself, sometimes in creative and deceptive ways if we do not observe. We should learn from India and other developing countries that have been impacted by so-called Western aid. Hope this video was informative and enjoyable. Make sure you like and subscribe for similar content. You can also support this channel by sharing or joining our Patreon where we get exclusive content and other goodies. Stay educated, my friends.